Scotland has over 150 working distilleries. They produce millions of gallons of whiskey every single year, and yet the vast majority of drinkers only ever touch the same 5 or 6 bottles. Here is what makes that such a waste. Every drop of Scotch whiskey is shaped by the land it comes from. The water, the air, the soil, the coastline, even the temperature inside the warehouse where the casks sit for a decade or more. Scotland is officially divided into 5 whiskey-producing regions, and each one creates a completely different drinking experience. From the sweet, honeyed malts of Speyside to the peat smoke and sea salt of Islay, these regions are not just lines on a map. They are the reason 2 bottles sitting next to each other on a shelf can taste like they came from different planets. But here is what the marketing departments do not want you to know. Some of the most expensive and most famous bottles from these regions are coasting on reputation alone. And some of the best Scotch you will ever taste is sitting right next to them on the shelf for half the price, completely ignored. So today, we are going region by region across Scotland. The famous distilleries, the overrated bottles, and the hidden gems that serious whiskey drinkers swear by. Whether you are brand new to Scotch or you have been drinking it for years, there is a good chance this video is going to change the way you shop. Let us start with the biggest name in the business. Speyside sits in the northeast of Scotland, tucked around the River Spey. It is a relatively small piece of land, but it punches well above its weight. Nearly half of all Scottish distilleries are packed into this one region, over 50 of them crammed into an area smaller than most counties. And the reason is the river. The Spey provides some of the purest water in Scotland, naturally filtered through granite, cold and mineral rich. That water feeds into a fermentation process that tends to produce fruity, sweet and elegant whiskies. If you have ever tasted Scotch with notes of honey, apple, vanilla or toffee, there is a strong chance it came from Speyside. The famous names here include Glenfiddich, the Glenlivet and the Macallan. These 3 alone probably account for the majority of single malt Scotch sold worldwide, and that is precisely the problem. The Macallan has become less of a whiskey brand and more of a luxury fashion label. Their standard 12-year-old sherry oak is bottled at 43% alcohol by volume, while many direct competitors bottle at 46% or higher, which means more flavour and a longer-lasting finish. And the price sits around $80 to over $100 depending on where you shop. For what you are getting in the glass, that is a tough sell when you know what else is available at that tier. Glenfiddich 12 is another ubiquitous example. It is everywhere, in every bar, every airport, every hotel minibar on Earth. It is smooth and it goes down easy, but there is a distinct lack of complexity. It is the training wheels of single malt, and there is nothing wrong with that, but paying close to $50 for training wheels feels like a stretch. So what should you be drinking instead from Speyside? Start with Glenallachie. Their 12-year-old was recently named World's Best Single Malt at the World Whiskies Awards. It is a full sherry-matured whiskey bottled at 46%, which gives it noticeably more flavour and a longer finish than the Macallan. And you can pick up 2 bottles for the price of 1 Macallan. Glenfarclas is another. This is one of the last independently owned distilleries on the Spey, still run by the same family, and their 12-year-old offers rich sherry character at a fraction of what the big names charge. Then there is Tam Dhu. This distillery has been around for nearly 130 years and still flies completely under the radar. Their sherry cask matured expressions consistently punch above their price point. Now let us head north and west into the largest whiskey region in Scotland. The Highlands cover an enormous stretch of the country, from just north of Glasgow all the way up to the northern tip of the mainland. Because the region is so vast, it is almost impossible to pin down a single flavour profile. Highland whiskies can range from light and floral to rich, spicy and full-bodied. The Northern Highlands tend to produce sweeter, fuller malts. The coastal west leans into maritime salt and peat. The south is drier and fruitier. It is like trying to describe the food of an entire continent in one sentence. The famous distilleries here include Dalmore, Glenmorangie, and Oban. Dalmore in particular has built a reputation around luxury packaging and premium pricing. The silver stag on the bottle is iconic, but the liquid inside does not always match the presentation. The standard 12-year-old leans heavily into sweet toffee and raisin flavors that many seasoned drinkers find cloying. It looks incredible on a shelf, but when you actually sit down and taste it against its competitors, the value proposition starts to fall apart. The hidden gem of the Highlands, and one of the best sherry-matured scotches in all of Scotland, is Glendronach. Their 15-year-old is a masterclass in what sherry cask maturation can do. Dark chocolate, dried cherries, raisins, and a chewy texture that stays on your palate for minutes after swallowing. If you are chasing sweetness and depth, Glendronach delivers it with more balance and sophistication than most bottles twice its price. Tomatin 12-year is another one worth seeking out. It comes from the Highlands but drinks like a much more expensive whiskey, with a smooth, approachable character that keeps you coming back to the glass. And for something coastal and unusual, Old Pulteney from the far north offers a briny, slightly sweet character with pepper and citrus that is unlike anything else in the region. Now we are going to head south to the region that almost everyone overlooks. The Lowlands cover the southern portion of Scotland, stretching from Glasgow and Edinburgh down to the English border. For decades, this was considered the least exciting region in Scottish whisky. By the early 1990s, there were only 2 malt whisky distilleries left operating here: Auchentoshan near Glasgow and Glenkinchie outside Edinburgh. That was it. 2 distilleries carrying an entire region. But something remarkable has happened over the past 15 years. A wave of new distilleries has swept through the Lowlands. Kingsbarns opened near St Andrews. Bladnoch came back to life after being rescued from closure. Lindores Abbey started distilling on the very site where the first written record of Scotch whisky was made back in 1494. The region now has over 20 malt whisky distilleries, and the growth shows no sign of slowing down. Lowland whisky tends to be lighter, gentler, and more floral than what you find further north. Many distilleries here practice triple distillation, which strips away heavier oils and creates a smoother, more delicate spirit. Auchentoshan is the best known example. Their 3-wood expression, matured in 3 different types of sherry and bourbon casks, delivers rich dark fruit and dark chocolate in a surprisingly accessible package. The hidden gem here is Daft Mill. This is a tiny farm distillery in Fife that only distills during the quiet months between harvests. Their releases are extremely limited and consistently exceptional. If you can find a bottle, buy it. Kingsbarns is more widely available, and their expressions stay true to the lowland character. Light, fruity and sweet, with enough complexity to keep experienced drinkers interested. If you have been enjoying this journey through Scotland so far, hit subscribe. We cover spirits and whiskey like this every week, and there is plenty more to come. Now let us cross the water to the island that changed whiskey forever. Islay is a small island off the west coast of Scotland. It measures roughly 25 miles from north to south and 20 miles across. And yet this tiny piece of land is home to some of the most famous and most polarizing whiskies on the planet. The reason is peat. Islay soil is rich with it, and for centuries distillers here dried their malted barley over peat fires. That process infuses the grain with smoky, earthy flavors that carry all the way through into the finished whiskey. Add the salt air from the Atlantic Ocean and the damp, cool warehouses right on the coast, and you get a whiskey that tastes like a bonfire on the beach. The big 3 on Islay are Laphroaig, Lagavulin, and Ardbeg. These distilleries sit on the southern coast of the island and produce some of the most intensely peated whiskey in the world. Ardbeg 10 measures around 50 parts per million of phenol, the compound responsible for that smoky flavour. It is consistently ranked among the best overall whiskies you can buy, praised for being bold enough for peat lovers but balanced enough that it does not completely overwhelm the palate. Lagavulin 16 is beloved, and for good reason. But it has also become quite expensive in recent years, and some drinkers argue that you can get a comparable or even superior Islay experience for less money. The hidden gem of Islay is Bunnahabhain. This distillery breaks every rule about what Islay whiskey is supposed to be. Their core range is largely unpeated, which makes them the odd one out on an island famous for smoke. Instead, you get brine, toffee, subtle dried fruit, and a gentle hint of sherry influence. It is complex, well-balanced, and a fraction of the price of its neighbours. Cale Ela is another overlooked choice. Much of their whiskey goes into Johnnie Walker blends, so their single malt releases do not get the attention they deserve. The 12-year-old is a perfect gateway into peated whiskey for anyone who finds the big three too aggressive. Kilchoman is also worth knowing about. It is one of the newest distilleries on Islay, founded in 2005, and it is one of the few that grows its own barley and malts it on site. Their expressions tend to balance smoke with bright citrus and floral notes in a way that feels genuinely fresh. And finally, we arrive at the smallest region in Scotland, the one that nearly disappeared entirely. Campbeltown sits on the Kintyre Peninsula, a remote finger of land jutting out into the Atlantic on Scotland's southwest coast. In the 1800s, this tiny town was known as the whiskey capital of the world. At its peak, over 30 distilleries were operating within the town limits. Boats would line up in the harbour waiting to carry casks of Campbeltown malt to markets around the globe. But by the early 20th century, the industry collapsed. Prohibition in America killed the export market. Many distilleries had been prioritizing quantity over quality for years, and the reputation suffered. One by one, the lights went out. By the 1930s, the number had dropped from over 20 to just 2. Springbank and Glen Scotia were all that survived. Today, there are 3 distilleries operating in Campbeltown: Springbank, Glen Scotia, and Glengyle. That third one, Glengyle, only exists because the Scotch Whisky Association was going to absorb Campbeltown into the larger Highland region. The rule required a minimum of 3 distilleries for a region to keep its official status. So in 2004, Springbank's owners opened Glengyle just down the road, and Campbeltown was saved. Springbank is the crown jewel here and arguably one of the most respected distilleries in all of Scotland. It is the only distillery in the country that handles every single step of production on site, from malting the barley to bottling the final whiskey. They produce 3 distinct styles under one roof. Springbank itself is lightly peated and partially triple distilled. Longrow is heavily peated and double distilled, and Hazelburn is completely unpeated and triple distilled. The quality is exceptional and the demand far exceeds the supply, which means bottles can be hard to find and prices on the secondary market have gone through the roof. The hidden gem of Campbeltown is Glen Scotia. For years, this distillery was an afterthought. It changed owners multiple times, shut down repeatedly, and most of its whiskey ended up in blends rather than being bottled as a single malt. But in recent years, a complete overhaul of the core range has turned things around. The Glen Scotia Victoriana is a standout expression that aims to recreate the big, bold style of Victorian-era Campbeltown whiskey. Deep charred oak, dark chocolate, dried fruit, and a rich, oily texture. For around $120, it offers a drinking experience that rivals bottles at twice the price. Kilkerran, the whiskey produced at Glengyle Distillery, is another gem. Their 12-year-old is one of the best entry-level single malts in the entire industry, capturing that classic Campbeltown character of salt, light smoke, and a distinctive, oily richness. And that is Scotland. 5 regions, 5 completely different approaches to making the same spirit. From the sweet elegance of Speyside to the raw, smoky power of Islay. From the gentle florals of the Lowlands to the briny complexity of Campbeltown. And the Highlands sitting in the middle, doing a bit of everything. The next time you are standing in front of a wall of Scotch bottles, skip the ones with the biggest marketing budgets and the fanciest packaging. Look for the names you do not recognize. Ask for the bottle the shop owner drinks at home. That is usually where the real value is hiding. If you found this helpful, consider subscribing, and we'll see you in the next one.